The story begins with the A380B1, the spark that ignited the European aerospace revolution. Only 2 of these aircraft were ever built. MSN-1, the first prototype, made its maiden flight in October 1972, proving that a twin-engine widebody was not only possible, but efficient. While short compared to later versions, it set the standard for the entire family. MSN-2 eventually found its way into commercial service with Air Algérie, but these 2 planes were primarily used for rigorous testing. They lacked the fuel capacity of later models, but their success convinced airlines that Airbus was a serious contender against the American giants of the era. The B2-100 series marked the A300's official entry into the commercial market, specifically designed to meet the high-capacity needs of Air France. This series introduced the stretched fuselage that would define the early A300 profile. Within this group, we see the first engine choices that gave airlines flexibility. The B2-101 was the standard bearer, powered by the reliable General Electric CF6-50C engines, which became a staple of the fleet. For those preferring American power plants, the B2-120 perfect for busy European corridors where high density was key. As airlines looked to push the aircraft further, Airbus introduced the B2-200 series. This wasn't just a simple update, it featured a significantly increased maximum takeoff weight, allowing for more payload over the same distances. The sub-variants here highlight the push for more power. The B2-202 utilized the GECF6-50C, while the more common B2-203 upgraded to the 50C2 engines, offering better performance during takeoff and climb. You could find these flying for airlines like Iran Air and VASP, where the extra weight capability was essential for regional operations. They paved the way for the A300's reputation as a rugged, reliable platform for medium-haul routes. Aviation is often about solving specific geographic challenges, and that is exactly where the A300B2320 comes in. This variant was developed specifically as a hot and high specialist. When taking off from high-altitude airports in blistering heat, engines lose significant thrust, but the 320 addressed this with high-thrust GECF6-50C2 engines. This provided the necessary safety margins and performance for challenging environments. It remains one of the rarer sub-variants in the family tree, but its existence proved that Airbus was willing to customize its airframe to meet the extreme operational requirements of global carriers in any climate. The A300B4-100 was the first true long-range evolution of the family, introducing a center fuel tank that dramatically boosted its reach. This allowed the A300 to move beyond regional hops and start crossing continents. The series included the B4-102, which used the General Electric CF6 engines, and the B4-120, which utilized the Pratt & Whitney JT9D. Beyond fuel, this series introduced Kruger flaps as standard to improve takeoff performance at higher weights. This version was the catalyst for the A300's global success, proving to skeptical international airlines that a twin-jet could safely and efficiently handle longer routes over water and mountains. Building on the success of the 100 series, the B4-200 became the definitive version of the early A300. It featured even higher weights and reinforced structures to handle the stresses of long-range flight. The B4-203 was the most prolific of the bunch, utilizing the high-thrust General Electric CF6-50C2. For carriers like Scandinavian Airlines, the B4-220 offered the Pratt & Whitney alternative. This generation was the first to truly challenge the 3-engine DC-10 and L-1011 on medium to long routes. Its efficiency was unmatched at the time, offering a lower cost per seat that eventually forced the industry to move away from trijets entirely for most routes. One of the most revolutionary moments in aviation history happened with the A300 B4-200FF. The FF stood for Forward-Facing Crew Cockpit. Before this, wide-body jets required a third person, the flight engineer, to manage systems from a side panel. Airbus redesigned the cockpit so all controls were accessible to just 2 pilots. This was a massive technical leap that faced significant pushback from unions at the time. However, airlines like Garuda Indonesia and VASP embraced it for the reduced operating costs. This specific sub-variant was the direct ancestor of every modern cockpit we fly today, proving that automation could safely replace a human crew member. In the 1980s, the A300 underwent a massive transformation to become the A300-600. This wasn't just a minor update, it combined the A300 fuselage with the advanced tail and cockpit technology of the newer A310. By using the A310's smaller rear fuselage, Airbus actually increased cabin space. The sub-variants here represent the move to digital cockpits and more efficient engines. The B4-601 and 603 used GECF 6-80C2 power plants, while the 620 and 622 variants introduced the Pratt & Whitney PW4000 series. This generation moved away from the old analog dials to electronic displays, making it one of the most technologically advanced aircraft of the decade. The A300-600R is the ultimate evolution of the passenger A300. The R stands for revised, but it might as well stand for range. By adding a trim fuel tank in the horizontal stabilizer, Airbus was able to increase fuel capacity and better manage the aircraft's center of gravity during flight. The B4605R used GE engines, while the B4622R utilized Pratt & Whitney. This was the version that famously allowed American airlines to dominate transatlantic and Caribbean routes. It was so successful that it remained in production long after other early widebodies had retired, serving as the backbone for many major global airlines well into the 2000s. Flexibility is the name of the game for the A300 C2 and C4 variants. These were convertible aircraft, designed to be changed from a full passenger configuration to a full freighter in a matter of hours. They featured a large main deck cargo door, but kept the windows and passenger amenities of the standard B2 and B4 models. This was perfect for airlines that flew passengers during the day and high-value cargo at night. While the C2 was based on the short-range airframe, the C4 was the more popular choice due to its better range. They represent a unique era in aviation, where a single airframe had to be a jack of all trades to be profitable. While many freighters are converted from old passenger planes, the A300 F4203 was born this way. This was the first factory-built freighter in the A300 family, based on the B4200 airframe. It lacked passenger windows and was built with a reinforced floor and a dedicated cargo loading system from day one. Powered by GECF 650C2 engines, it became a vital tool for early express delivery companies. It proved that the A300 airframe was a natural fit for the cargo world, thanks to its wide fuselage that could hold 2 rows of standard containers side by side. This aircraft laid the groundwork for the A300's eventual second life as a cargo icon. The A300-600F and RF variants are the reason the A300 is still a common sight at airports today. These were factory-built freighters based on the advanced 600 series technology. The RF often refers to the rear freighter or modern new builds specifically for the massive fleets of FedEx and UPS. These aircraft utilized the digital cockpit and the high-efficiency engines of the late model 600R, but without the weight of passenger seats or windows. They are incredibly reliable and perfectly sized for regional feeder routes. Even though production ended years ago, these factory freighters continue to fly thousands of hours every year across the globe. As passenger airlines began retiring their A300-600S in favor of the newer A330, a new market emerged, the passenger-to-freighter conversion, or P2F. Companies like EFW would take an old passenger jet, strip the interior, plug the windows, and install a massive main deck cargo door. This gave a second life to hundreds of airframes. These conversions are often indistinguishable from factory freighters to the untrained eye, but they allowed cargo operators to acquire the capable 600 airframe at a much lower cost. Today, companies like DHL rely heavily on these P2F conversions to move freight across Europe and Asia, proving the A300's enduring value. Perhaps the most recognizable aircraft in the world, the A300-600 ST, better known as the Beluga, is a total transformation of the A300-600R. Airbus needed a way to transport large aircraft sections between its factories across Europe, so they cut the top off an A300 and added a massive bulbous cargo bay. Officially designated as the A300 F4608 ST, it features a lowered cockpit to allow cargo to be loaded straight over the pilots' heads. 5 were built, and they were essential to the production of the A320, A340, and A350. While they are being replaced by the larger Beluga XL, these A300-based giants remain marvels of engineering and logic. Finally, we have the 0G, an aircraft that literally defies gravity. This specific variant, based on an early A300 B21C airframe, was modified for parabolic flight research. By flying in a specific arc, the aircraft creates a period of weightlessness inside the cabin for scientists and astronauts to conduct experiments. The interior was completely stripped and padded to protect the occupants as they floated in mid-air. Operated by Novaspace for the European Space Agency, this A300 played a vital role in space research for decades. It's a fittingly out-of-this-world final chapter for an aircraft that started as a simple short-haul twin-jet in 1972. The A310-200 was the aircraft that proved Airbus could successfully shrink a widebody without losing its edge. Launching with Swissair and Lufthansa in 1983, it was designed for routes where the larger A300 was simply too much plane. It features a fuselage length of 46.66 meters and a wingspan of 43.9 meters. The most revolutionary part of the A300 was its wing. Designed by British Aerospace, it was smaller but much more efficient than the A300s. Powered by Pratt & Whitney JT9D-7R4 or GEC F6-80A engines, it had a range of about 3,670 nautical miles. It pioneered the two-crew glass cockpit, removing the flight engineer and setting the standard for every modern airliner you fly on today. The A310-200C brought convertible flexibility to the early Airbus fleet. Entering service with Martinair Holland in 1984, this variant was a masterpiece of operational engineering. It featured a massive main deck cargo door on the forward left side and a reinforced floor system. This allowed airlines to fly 240 passengers on busy weekends and then quickly pull the seats to haul palletized freight during the week. It maintained the same 142-ton maximum takeoff weight as the standard 200. This model was vital for smaller carriers that needed their one aircraft to be a jack of all trades, allowing them to maximize profits regardless of shifting passenger or cargo demands. The A310-200F is the dedicated freight specialist. Unlike the convertible, this version was either built as a pure cargo hauler or permanently converted from older passenger models. It can carry roughly 39 tons of cargo across its main and lower decks. FedEx Express became the most famous face of this aircraft, using it to modernize their regional feeder networks. By stripping out the windows and passenger amenities, Airbus created a cavernous interior optimized for the express shipping industry. It was valued for its high reliability and lower operating costs compared to the aging three-engine jets of the era, making it a cornerstone of global logistics for decades. The A310-300 is the legendary long-range evolution of the airframe. First flying in 1985, it looks like the 200, but under the skin, it's a different beast. It introduced a revolutionary trim tank in the horizontal stabilizer. This allowed the aircraft to shift fuel during flight to optimize the center of gravity, significantly reducing drag. This tech, combined with iconic wingtip fences, pushed the range to over 5,100 nautical miles. It was powered by upgraded GEC F6-80C2 or PW4000 engines. Operators like Air India and Singapore Airlines used it to conquer the Atlantic and Indian Oceans, proving that a twin-engine widebody could handle the world's most demanding long-haul routes. The A310-300C took the massive range of the 300 series and added the convertible Combi capability. This allowed for long-range missions that required both high passenger capacity and heavy cargo loads. It featured the same 164-ton maximum takeoff weight and advanced trim tank system, but included the reinforced floor and large cargo door. This variant was particularly popular with government agencies and mixed service carriers who needed to move personnel and heavy equipment over vast distances, such as from Europe to Asia, without stopping to refuel. It remains one of the most flexible long-haul assets ever produced by Airbus in that era. The A310-324F is a specific high-performance freighter designation. The 24 specifically denotes the installation of Pratt & Whitney PW4152 engines, which offered superior thrust for heavy-lift operations. Most of these were produced as passenger-to-freighter P2F conversions by EFW in Dresden. By taking the advanced 300 airframe and stripping it for cargo, operators got a plane with transcontinental range and incredible lifting power. These aircraft are still workhorses in the fleets of global giants like FedEx, often serving as the primary bridge between regional hubs and major international sorting centers due to their perfect balance of size and efficiency. The A310-300 is the most unique aircraft in the fleet, serving as a floating laboratory for space research. Operated by Novespace for the French Space Agency, this modified 300 is used to perform parabolic maneuvers. By climbing steeply and then diving, it creates 22 seconds of true weightlessness for the scientists inside. The interior is completely padded and most windows are plugged. Interestingly, this specific airframe previously served as the German government's Konrad Adenauer transport for Chancellor Angela Merkel. It is a vital tool for training astronauts and testing equipment before it ever heads to the International Space Station. The A310 MRT stands for Multi-Role Transport. This is a military-specific version of the 300 series designed for the heavy lifting of Air Force logistics. Unlike the tanker versions, the MRT focuses on moving troops, pallets, and medical patients. It can be configured as a flying hospital, capable of carrying intensive care units and medical staff into disaster zones. The German Luftwaffe and other European air forces used the MRT as their primary strategic reach, allowing them to deploy forces globally. Its ability to operate from medium-sized runways while carrying over 30 tons of equipment made it an indispensable asset for international peacekeeping and humanitarian missions. The A310 MRTT, multi-role tanker transport, is the aircraft that turned the A310 into a flying gas station. It is distinguished by the refueling pods mounted under each wing, which allow it to refuel 2 fighter jets simultaneously using the hose and drogue method. Inside, it retains the ability to carry cargo or passengers, making it the ultimate multitasker. It was the precursor to the modern A330 MRTT. The German Air Force and Royal Canadian Air Force were the primary users, utilizing the MRTT to extend the range of their fighter fleets during long-range deployments to places like the Middle East or across the Atlantic for NATO exercises. The CC-150 Canada Force One is the VIP-configured crown jewel of the Royal Canadian Air Force's 437 Squadron. While officially a CC-150 Polaris, the aircraft designated for the Prime Minister and the Governor-General, tail number 15001, is fitted with a specialized executive interior. It includes a private stateroom, a dining area, and secure satellite communication suites. Though it has faced wear and tear issues over the years, it has carried Canadian leadership to every G7 and G20 summit for decades. It is a symbol of Canadian diplomacy, essentially acting as a mobile, secure government headquarters that can reach almost any capital in the world non-stop. The CC-150T Polaris is the Canadian military's tanker workhorse. The T signifies its specialized role in aerial refueling. Outfitted with dual wing-mounted pods, the T Polaris is responsible for keeping Canada's CF-18 Hornet fleet airborne during long patrols and overseas combat missions. These aircraft were originally civilian airliners from Wardair, Canada, before being converted for military service. They are rugged and capable of flying in the extreme cold of the Canadian Arctic or the heat of global deployment zones. For the RCAF, the T Polaris is a strategic multiplier, ensuring their fighters never have to land simply because they ran out of fuel during a mission. The CC-150 Polaris refers to the standard strategic airlifters used by Canada that are not equipped for refueling. These aircraft are the backbone of Canadian military transport, moving thousands of troops and tons of supplies to missions around the globe. Whether it's delivering aid after a natural disaster or transporting equipment for a NATO mission in Europe, the Polaris is the go-to heavy lifter. It lacks the fancy VIP interior of the Prime Minister's jet, focusing instead on pure utility and volume. It's a testament to the A310's design that a 1980s airliner is still considered a strategic asset by a major military power well into the 2020s. The A380-100 is the smallest member of the A320 family, seating around 107 passengers on two CFM56 or PW6000 engines with a range of about 3,100 miles. Air France and Frontier were among its early fans, though most operators have since moved on to more efficient jets. The ACJ318 is a corporate jet built on the A318 airframe, converted into a long-range private transport, with just a handful of seats aboard. It can fly nearly 7,000 miles non-stop. Governments and private owners in Europe and the Middle East have used it as a flying office. The A319-100 is the shorter sibling of the A320, carrying around 120 to 140 passengers on CFM56 or V2500 engines. Its range reaches close to 3,700 miles comfortably. United, Lufthansa and EasyJet all fly it, prizing its flexibility on thinner routes across Europe and the Americas. The A319LR is the long-range version of the A319, fitted with extra fuel tanks to push its reach past 4,200 miles. It carries fewer passengers in exchange for that distance. Operators used it to open thinner transatlantic routes where a bigger plane simply would not fill up. The A319neo is the re-engined A319, using CFM LEAP or Pratt & Whitney PW1100G engines to burn noticeably less fuel. It seats around 120 to 140 passengers. Air China and Avianca were early takers, though orders stayed modest as airlines preferred the larger A320neo instead. The A319CJ is the corporate jet version of the A319, kitted out as a long-range VIP transport with a cabin that can sleep passengers. It flies close to 6,000 miles. Military and government operators across Europe, Asia and Latin America use it as a head-of-state transport. The ACJ319neo takes the A319neo airframe and turns it into a business jet, with much better fuel economy than the older CJ. It can carry a handful of VIP passengers over 6,700 miles non-stop. Private buyers and government fleets in Europe and the Gulf have placed orders for it. The A319 MPA is a maritime patrol proposal Airbus put forward, using the A319 airframe as the base for an ocean surveillance aircraft. It was pitched with sensor systems for tracking ships and submarines. No orders were placed, but it showed Airbus was serious about the military market. The A319OH is an open-skies treaty aircraft operated by the German Air Force, fitted with cameras and sensors to conduct agreed observation flights over other nations. It replaced older platforms and flies under strict international rules. Germany uses it to meet its NATO obligations. The A320-100 is the original version of the A320, built in very small numbers before Airbus switched to the improved -200. It seats around 150 passengers and uses CFM56 or V2500 engines. Air France took the first ones in 1988, making it the pioneer of fly-by-wire airliners worldwide. The A320-200 is the main production A320, adding wingtip fences and a center fuel tank over the -100 for better range. It carries 150 to 180 passengers, up to about 3,300 miles. Nearly every major airline on Earth has operated it, making it one of the best-selling jets ever built. The A320neo brought new CFM LEAP or PW1100G engines to the classic A320, cutting fuel burn by around 15%. It seats 150 to 180 passengers with a similar range to the CEO. Indigo, EasyJet and American Airlines are among the biggest operators of this widely ordered aircraft. The A320neo M3A is a military concept. Airbus revealed at Farnborough 2018, proposing the neo airframe as a base for maritime patrol, submarine hunting, airborne radar and signals intelligence work. No nation has ordered it yet, but Airbus keeps the offer open for future competitions. The ACJ320 is the corporate version of the A320, reconfigured with a luxurious cabin and extra fuel tanks for extended range. It can carry VIP passengers over 5,000 miles in comfort. Government and charter operators in the Middle East and Europe have been its most consistent customers. The ACJ320neo brings neo fuel savings to the corporate jet formula, giving government and private passengers a more economical long-range cabin. Range goes beyond 6,000 miles with tanks fitted. Gulf operators and several European governments have taken delivery of this efficient variant. The A320 P2F is a converted freighter, where an old passenger gets a cargo door, reinforced floor and plugged windows to carry freight. It can hold up to about 16 tons on main and lower decks. EFW in Germany does the work, and express cargo carriers run them on short-haul route. The A321-100 is the first stretched A321, about 7 meters longer than the A320 and seating up to 220 passengers. It entered service in 1994 with Lufthansa. The range was limited compared to later versions, so most operators quickly moved to the -200 once it was available on the market. The A321-200 improved on the 100 by adding fuel capacity and lifting the range past 3,200 miles. It seats up to 220 passengers and runs on CFM56 or V2500 engines. American Airlines, Air China and Thomas Cook were among the heavy users, especially on thicker leisure and domestic routes. The A321neo is the re-engined A321, using CFM LEAP or PW1100G engines to burn far less fuel than the CEO. It seats up to 220 passengers with a range close to 4,000 miles. American, United and Indigo have ordered it in big numbers and it has become one of the hottest jets on the market. The A321neo ACF, known as Airbus Cabin Flex, adds an extra door pair and rearranges exit configurations to legally carry up to 244 passengers. Wizz Air and Frontier chose it for high-density flying, where fitting in as many seats as possible is the clear commercial priority. The A321LR is the long-range A321neo, fitted with 3 extra fuel tanks to push the range beyond 4,000 miles. It lets airlines fly thinner transatlantic routes with a narrow-body. Aer Lingus was among the first to use it on routes from Dublin to the US East Coast with solid economics. The A321XLR is the extra long-range version, reaching nearly 5,400 miles thanks to a built-in rear fuel tank that is part of the airframe. Iberia, Air France and American are among the carriers planning to fly it on transatlantic routes where a bigger plane would not fill seats. The ACJ321 is the corporate version of the A321, offering one of the biggest private jet cabins around with room for lounges, sleeping areas and offices. Its range sits near 5,000 miles. Middle Eastern governments and high-end charter firms are the main buyers and operators of this jet. The A321 P2F is a converted A321 freighter featuring a large cargo door, reinforced main deck floor, and sealed windows throughout the cabin. It carries up to 27 tons of cargo. DHL, Qantas Freight, and Titan Airways run them on express and charter routes as 757 freighter replacements. The A321 PCF is Precision Conversion's freighter option, using a different cargo door layout to the EFW program. It targets the same express cargo market with solid payload numbers. Air Transport Services Group backed the effort and runs several of the converted aircraft on its network. The A321-200 SDF is Syndraco's freighter conversion, a third certified path for turning old A321s into cargo haulers. Lufthansa Cargo flew the first one in early 2022. It competes with the P2F and PCF programs through its own approved conversion and a distinct interior layout. The Airbus A330-300 is where the family began, entering service with French carrier Air Inter in January 1994 as a twin-engine replacement for the Airbus A300. Built on a stretched A300-600 fuselage with a fly-by-wire cockpit inherited from the A320, it seats up to 440 passengers in high-density layout or around 277 in a standard 3-class cabin. Operators choose between General Electric, Pratt & Whitney or Rolls-Royce Trent 700 engines, with a maximum range of 11,750 kilometers. More than 700 remain in active service today across Asia, Europe and the Middle East. The Airbus A330-200 entered service with Korean Air in 1998 as the shorter, longer-range sibling of the A330-300. Featuring a fuselage nearly identical to the A340-200 and a taller tail to compensate for the reduced moment arm, it trades passenger capacity for a maximum range of 13,450 kilometers. Seating up to 250 passengers in a 2-class layout, it was the first widebody to offer engines from all 3 major manufacturers simultaneously. With over 600 delivered, it became the preferred choice for long, thin routes where range matters far more than raw capacity. The Airbus A330-200F is the dedicated freighter variant of the A330 family, launched at the 2006 Farnborough Airshow with first deliveries in 2010. It features a reinforced main deck, a modified nose gear that tilts the forward fuselage upward to ease cargo loading, a large cargo door on the forward left fuselage, and no passenger windows. Capable of carrying up to 70 tons of freight over 5,900 kilometers, it competes in the mid-size long-haul cargo market. Qatar Airways Cargo operated the largest fleet, and exactly 38 aircraft were built before production closed in 2017. The Airbus A330-300 high gross weight variant came to life after Airbus raised the maximum takeoff weight to 242 tons through a strengthened wing structure and an additional center fuel tank. First delivered to Delta Airlines in May 2015, it extends the standard A330-300's range to approximately 11,750 kilometers with a full payload, matching performance previously limited to the smaller A330-200. The upgrade opened transatlantic and trans-Pacific operations to the larger 300 cabin, significantly broadening the routes airlines could profitably serve without stepping down to a lower capacity aircraft. The Airbus A330-300 Regional is a high-density, short-haul optimized variant launched in 2013 and first delivered to Saudi Arabian Airlines in 2016. Featuring a reduced maximum takeoff weight of around 200 tons and lower engine thrust settings that cut maintenance costs, it targets routes of up to 2,700 nautical miles flown in 5 hours or less. It carries up to 400 passengers in a single-class layout, offering cost-per-seat economics competitive with narrow-body aircraft at significantly higher passenger volumes. It is best suited to high-frequency domestic and regional trunk routes where wide-body capacity is justified. The Airbus A330-800neo is the smaller of the two new engine option variants, based on the A330-200 fuselage and powered exclusively by Rolls-Royce Trent 7000 engines. Certified jointly by EASA and the FAA in February 2020, it delivers a maximum range of 15,090 kilometers, placing it among the longest-range wide-body twin-jets available. An extended 64-meter wingspan with sharklet wingtip devices provides a 14% improvement in fuel efficiency per seat over the original A330-200. Despite limited commercial orders, Kuwait Airways is its primary operator, and it fills a genuine niche on ultra-long, low-density routes. The Airbus A330-900neo is the larger and far more commercially successful new engine option variant, based on the A330-200 fuselage and powered by Rolls-Royce Trent 7000 engines. It entered service with TAP Air Portugal in November 2018 and offers a range of up to 13,334 kilometers in its 251-ton high gross weight configuration. Featuring an extended 64-meter wingspan with sharklets, an updated airspace cabin interior derived from the A350, and 14% better fuel burn per seat than the A330-300, it competes directly with the Boeing 787-9. Over 350 have been ordered, making it the dominant variant of the Neo generation. The Airbus A330-300 passenger-to-freighter conversion offers airlines and cargo operators a cost-effective path to wide-body freight capacity by converting retired A330-300 airframes through EADS Elbe Flugzeugwerke. Delivering a maximum payload of around 63 tons, it surpasses the 53-ton capability of the competing Boeing 767-300 freighter. Air Transport Services Group placed a major order for 29 aircraft in 2022, driven directly by booming e-commerce logistics demand. The converted jets retain structural commonality with their passenger counterparts, simplifying maintenance while extending airframe life well beyond the original retirement date. The ACJ330 is Airbus's flagship wide-body business jet, based on the A330-200 and aimed at government operators and ultra-high net worth clients requiring intercontinental range in a large cabin environment. Seating as few as 50 passengers in a fully bespoke interior, it offers a range exceeding 15,400 kilometers, connecting virtually any two cities on Earth without a fuel stop. It retains the commercial A330-200's three engine options from General Electric, Pratt & Whitney, and Rolls-Royce, alongside additional fuel tanks for extended endurance. Multiple governments operate it as a head of state transport, making it one of the largest purpose-configured business jets flying today. The ACJ330neo is the new engine option variant of the Airbus corporate jet, based on the A330-800neo platform and powered by Rolls-Royce Trent 7000 engines. It achieves a non-stop range of up to 10,200 nautical miles, enabling missions such as non-stop New York to Tokyo without a refueling stop, and seats up to 25 passengers in maximum VIP configuration. The Harmony interior concept introduces curved cabin surfaces, a forward master suite, private guest suites, and a dedicated workspace. Burning 12% less fuel than the original ACJ330, it appeals to governments and private operators seeking modern wide-body comfort with significantly improved operating economics. The Airbus A330 multi-role tanker transport is a military derivative of the A330-200 designed for aerial refueling and long-range strategic transport. Operated by 18 nations including Australia, the United Kingdom, France, South Korea, Canada, and a NATO multinational fleet, it can transfer up to 111,000 kilograms of fuel via an aerial refueling boom, underwing hose and drogue pods, or a centerline fuselage refueling unit. In transport configuration, it carries up to 380 troops, 130 stretchers for medical evacuation, or standard military cargo pallets. With 66 aircraft delivered as of early 2026, it is the most capable and widely operated tanker transport in service. The Airbus A330 MRTT Plus is the next-generation evolution of the tanker transport family, based on the A330-800 Neo airframe and powered by Rolls-Royce Trent 7000 engines. Unveiled in 2024, it features an increased maximum takeoff weight of 242 tons, a longer wingspan with blended wingtip devices, and an updated airspace-derived cabin, delivering meaningfully lower fuel consumption and extended mission range over the original MRTT. It retains the full multi-role capability of its predecessor, including boom and drogue refueling, troop transport, cargo carriage, and medical evacuation. Several nations are currently evaluating or procuring the type as their next strategic tanker. The Airbus A330-200 Beluga XL is a purpose-built, outsized cargo transport derived from the A330-200, developed to replace the older A300-600 ST Beluga in moving large aircraft components between Airbus production sites across Europe. Its enlarged fuselage features a maximum internal width of 8.8 meters and a total volume of 2,615 cubic meters, large enough to carry two A350 wings simultaneously, a task the original Beluga could not perform. Making its first flight in July 2018 and entering service in January 2020, it retains the A330-200's General Electric CF6 engines and landing gear. 5 aircraft have been built to support Airbus production across Toulouse, Hamburg, Broughton, and Saint-Nazaire. The Airbus A340-200 was the aircraft that started it all for the quad-jet family, entering service with Lufthansa in March 1993 on the Frankfurt to New York route. It was the shortest member of the A340 family, stretching just under 59 meters, and was designed from the ground up to connect city pairs that no twin-engine jet of the era could legally serve without ETOPS certification. Powered by 4 CFM56-5C engines, producing around 34,000 pounds of thrust each, it carried between 210 and 260 passengers across a range of up to 15,000 kilometers. Air France was a major early operator, using it to open thin intercontinental routes that simply didn't have the demand to justify a 747. Despite being the founding member of the family, the 200 was commercially overshadowed by the more popular 300, almost from day one, and only 28 examples were ever delivered, before Airbus shifted its focus to the longer variant. Today, virtually none remain in commercial service, with most having been retired or converted for cargo and government use over the past decade. The Airbus A340-300 is the definitive version of the original A340 family, and by far its most commercially successful variant, accounting for around 200 of the 377 aircraft the program produced in total. Stretching just over 63 meters with a capacity of up to 295 passengers in a 3-class layout, it entered service in March 1993 alongside the 200, with launch customers Lufthansa and Air France. Powered by 4 CFM International CFM56-5C turbofans, it offered a range of approximately 13,350 kilometers, making it well suited to long, thin intercontinental routes where the traffic didn't justify a Boeing 747, but the distances ruled out the twin-engine jets of the time. Lufthansa operated the largest fleet and used it extensively across Europe to North America and Asia routes for over a decade. Singapore Airlines, Swiss, and South African Airways were among the other major operators. The 300 competed directly with the Boeing 777-200 through much of the 1990s and held its own commercially until fuel prices rose sharply in the mid-2000s and 4-engine economics became increasingly difficult to defend against the more efficient 777-300ER. The Airbus A340-300 HGW, or high gross weight variant, was a structural upgrade to the standard 300 that raised the maximum takeoff weight and added center fuel tank capacity to extend its already impressive range. The modification was driven by airline demand for more payload range flexibility, particularly for routes where the standard 300's limits were too restrictive to carry a full passenger load alongside sufficient fuel for the complete journey. With strengthened wing attachment points, a reinforced undercarriage, and an optional additional center fuel tank, the HGW version extended the aircraft's range capability to over 13,700 kilometers fully loaded. It retained the same CFM56-5C engine family as the standard 300, meaning that from a pilot and maintenance standpoint, the two variants were essentially identical to operate. The upgrade was particularly valued by airlines on transatlantic routes, where payload and range had to be carefully balanced, depending on headwind conditions and seasonal demand. While not a dramatically different aircraft in appearance or handling, the HGW designation represented a meaningful commercial improvement that kept the 300 competitive into the late 2000s against an increasingly capable twin-engine competition. The Airbus A340-500 was the longest-range member of the original A340 family and one of the most ambitious commercial aircraft Airbus ever built. Designed specifically to operate non-stop on routes of up to 16,670 kilometers. Launched alongside the 600 in December 1997 and entering service with Singapore Airlines in 2004, it introduced an entirely new power plant in the form of 4 Rolls-Royce Trent 553 engines, replacing the CFM56S of the earlier 200 and 300 variants. At 67.9 meters long, it stretched the A340-300 fuselage by over 4 meters and added a significantly enlarged wing, with increased fuel capacity approaching 215,000 liters. Singapore Airlines used it to operate the world's longest non-stop flights at the time, connecting Singapore to Newark and Los Angeles without a single fuel stop. The route was commercially and operationally groundbreaking. However, the 500 carried a relatively small passenger count of around 250 to 300 in typical configurations, despite its enormous fuel load, making its seat-mile economics deeply unattractive once fuel prices climbed sharply after 2005. Only 34 examples were ever delivered across 6 airlines, making it one of the rarest and most economically troubled commercial widebody jets of its generation. The Airbus A340-500 IGW, standing for Increased Gross Weight, was the refined and upgraded production version of the A340-500 that addressed some of the range and payload limitations of the baseline model by pushing the maximum takeoff weight up to 380 tons. It first flew in October 2006 and entered service with Thai Airways International in April 2007, using the strengthened structure and enlarged fuel system originally developed for the A340-600. HGW, powered by 4 Rolls-Royce Trent 556 engines, each rated at around 250 kilonewtons, it achieved a maximum range of 17,000 kilometers, making it one of the longest-range production aircraft of its era. Nigerian carrier Eric Air was a notable operator, using it to open non-stop services between Lagos and London Heathrow, and later Lagos to New York, routes that showcase the type's extraordinary reach. Despite these operational achievements, the IGW variant attracted very little commercial interest. The fundamental problem of carrying heavy structure and 4 engines across ultra-long routes while seating a relatively small number of passengers made it extraordinarily expensive per seat to operate, and the Boeing 777-200LR offered comparable range with 2 engines and significantly lower fuel burn. The Airbus A340-600 was the largest and most ambitious version of the A340 family, stretching 75.36 meters from nose to tail and holding the title of the world's longest commercial passenger aircraft from its entry into service until the Boeing 747-8 arrived in 2010. Launched in December 1997 and making its first flight in April 2001, it entered commercial service with Virgin Atlantic in August 2002. Powered by 4 Rolls-Royce Trent 556 engines, producing up to 249 kilonewtons of thrust each, It could seat up to 380 passengers in a 3-class layout and carry them up to 14,350 kilometers. Virgin Atlantic, Lufthansa, Air France, Cathay Pacific, and Iberia were among its key operators, using it primarily on high-demand long-haul trunk routes where its capacity could be filled. The 600 competed directly with the Boeing 777-300ER, a matchup it consistently lost on fuel economics despite offering comparable capacity. By the time production ended in 2011, only 97 examples had been delivered, a deeply disappointing total for an aircraft of its size and ambition. Today, fewer than 40 remain in active passenger service, with the type rapidly disappearing from airline fleets as more fuel-efficient alternatives have made its 4-engine operating model economically unviable. The Airbus A340-600 HGW was the high-gross weight production variant of the 600, certified in April 2006 after its first flight in November 2005, and represented Airbus's attempt to push the type's range and payload performance to its absolute limits. With a maximum takeoff weight raised to 380 tons through a combination of structural reinforcement, laser beam welding techniques in manufacturing, increased fuel capacity, and upgraded Rolls-Royce Trent 560 engines, producing nearly 275 kilonewtons of thrust each, it achieved a maximum range of 14,630 kilometers with a full passenger load. Qatar Airways was the launch customer and took delivery of the first aircraft in September 2006, initially deploying it on high-density routes to London Heathrow. Lufthansa, Virgin Atlantic, and Etihad Airways also took examples. The HGW delivered an 18% productivity improvement over the standard 600, according to Airbus, and introduced a notable first in commercial aviation, with Qatar Airways fitting a stand-up onboard business lounge between the first and business class cabins. Despite these genuine improvements, the variant attracted only modest orders, as airlines increasingly preferred the Boeing 777-300ER's twin-engine economics on the same routes. Only a handful of HGW-specific deliveries were made before the entire A340-600 program wound down. The ACJ340-300 Prestige is the corporate and government VIP derivative of the A340-300, developed by Airbus Corporate Jets and initially marketed under the A340-300 Prestige name, before being rebranded ACJ340-300 in 2011. It offers a range of approximately 14,300 kilometers in a typical VIP configuration, seating around 75 passengers, putting virtually any 2 cities on Earth within reach without a fuel stop. Powered by 4 CFM56-5 C4P engines, it retains the 4-engine ETOPS-free operational profile of the commercial 300, which proved highly attractive to government operators who valued the availability of the 4-engine configuration on politically sensitive routes where engine reliability perceptions mattered. Multiple heads of state and government ministries across the Middle East, Asia, and Europe have operated the type, often fitting it with bespoke interiors featuring private suites, conference rooms, medical facilities, and communication systems far beyond anything available on conventional business jets. The aircraft's wide 5.28-meter interior and 54-meter cabin length give outfitters considerably more freedom than a narrow-body corporate jet, enabling genuinely residence-like interiors. While no longer in production, over 20 examples are estimated to remain in active VIP and government service globally. The ACJ340-500 is the ultra-long-range corporate variant of the Airbus A340 family, based on the A340-500 airframe and capable of a non-stop range of approximately 18,500 kilometers in a typical VIP configuration, seating 75 passengers. That figure places it among the longest-range purpose-configured VIP transports ever produced, able to connect virtually any 2 points on the planet without refueling. Powered by 4 Rolls-Royce Trent 553 engines, it combines the commercial 500's enormous fuel capacity and enlarged wing with the significantly reduced weight of a VIP passenger load instead of a full commercial complement, resulting in range performance that no equivalent wide-body twinjet could match at the time it entered service. The ACJ340-600 is the largest and most spectacular member of the ACJ340 corporate family, based on the A340-600 airframe and offering a cabin that stretches an extraordinary 54 meters in length at a width exceeding 5 meters, making it one of the most spacious single-deck private aircraft ever configured for VIP use. In a typical 25-passenger ultra-luxury layout, it achieves a range of approximately 16,700 kilometers, giving its operators true global reach with minimal compromise. Powered by 4 Rolls-Royce Trent 556 engines, it carries over 195,000 liters of fuel and maintains the ETOPS-free operational independence that many government operators specifically requested. The Airbus A350-900 entered service with Qatar Airways in January 2015 as Airbus's answer to the Boeing 787 and the 777. Stretching 66.8 meters and seating up to 350 passengers, it is powered by Rolls-Royce Trent XWB-84 engines and built from over 70% advanced materials. With a range of 15,000 kilometers and over 900 delivered, it is the commercial backbone of the entire A350 family. The A350-900 Regional is a reduced maximum takeoff weight variant of the standard 900, launched in 2013 to target high-frequency, shorter routes of up to 10,000 kilometers. Lower thrust settings cut maintenance costs, making it economically competitive on trunk routes where full long-range capability is unnecessary. Singapore Airlines and Etihad Airways are its primary operators, deploying it across Asia-Pacific and Middle Eastern networks. The A350-900 Ultra Long Range is the longest-range commercial airliner flying today, capable of 9,700 nautical miles non-stop. It entered service with Singapore Airlines in October 2018 on the Singapore to Newark route, the world's longest commercial flight at nearly 19 hours. Its extended range comes from a modified fuel system, raising capacity to 165,000 liters. Singapore Airlines operates all 7 delivered examples exclusively. The Airbus A350-1000 is the larger sibling of the 900, stretching 73.8 meters and seating up to 410 passengers. Powered by the more powerful Trent XWB-97 engine and featuring a 6-wheel main landing gear bogie, it entered service with Qatar Airways in February 2018. British Airways, Cathay Pacific and Lufthansa operated on high-demand long-haul trunk routes, where its 16,100-kilometer range and premium cabin capacity deliver strong economics. The A350-1000 Ultra Long Range is being built specifically for Qantas Project Sunrise, non-stop flights from Australia to London and New York lasting up to 22 hours. An additional 20,000-liter rear center fuel tank and taller wingtips give it the range to cover over 17,000 kilometers. Qantas ordered 12 examples, configured with just 238 seats to keep weight minimal. The first aircraft rolled out in Toulouse in April 2026. The Airbus A350F is the dedicated freighter variant of the A350 family, launched in 2021 and based on the A350-900 airframe with Trent XWB-97 engines. It features a large main deck cargo door, a reinforced floor, and a maximum payload of 111 tons over 8,700 kilometers. Around 63 firm orders have been placed by operators including Lufthansa Cargo, Singapore Airlines Cargo, and Air France KLM. Entry into service is targeted for late 2027. The ACJ350-900 is the corporate jet derivative of the A350-900, unveiled in 2016 and offering a range of 20,000 kilometers with 25 passengers in full VIP configuration. Its 270 square meters of cabin space can be fitted with private suites, shower rooms, and conference facilities using Airbus's EasyFit attachment system. The German Air Force operates an example as a government transport, and several private clients across the Middle East have taken delivery. The ACJ350-1000 is the largest Airbus corporate jet offering, based on the A350-1000 and delivering over 54 meters of continuous cabin space with a range exceeding 19,000 kilometers. Powered by Trent XWB-97 engines, it gives operators genuine global reach with enough interior volume for multiple private zones, staterooms, and dedicated crew quarters. It targets sovereign governments and ultra-high net worth clients requiring the absolute maximum in range, space, and capability. The Airbus A380-800 is the world's largest passenger aircraft, entering service with Singapore Airlines in October 2007 as the only full-length double-deck commercial jet ever built. Powered by 4 Rolls-Royce Trent 900 or Engine Alliance GP7200 engines, it seats up to 853 passengers in all-economy layout, or around 525 in a typical 3-class configuration across a range of 14,800 kilometers. A total of 251 were delivered before production ended in 2020.